blasting through the portal and entering into a purple reality slipstream. Void and the others flip through its zero-gravity field, but soon enough, stabilize themselves. Soaring up beside him, T, Vivian, and Bode all created a diamond flight pattern shape. Bode above, T at Void's right, and Vivian to his left. Setting their sights forwards, the Voids all lock their eyes upon the fleeing reflection, the Lotus variant, cloaked within one of their brothers. As Jida and the others slightly lagged behind, the four Voids were adamant on saving their counterpart, especially Void. His Lotus had taken so much from him, and he wasn't about to let another version do the same to a reflection. V may not have everything he did once before, but he still had one thing left, a chance to live. Turning around, the Shadow snarled with his now unmasked scarred face, extended his dark matter butterfly wings, and roared, revealing a red glowing eyeball within V's mouth. Can you guys fly? Void asked as he deployed an evolved set of larger, red cybernetic wings that looked almost akin to hawks. Nodding his head, T spun through the air and summoned forth glowing blue, spectral angel-looking wings, while Vivian simply activated her back thruster and helmet. Void, on the other hand, dropped into his robotic chest, sealed its top over with a golden glass piece, and turned his upper limbs into spinning thrusters, while his lower ones became blasters. Nodding, Void ignited his wings with a cherry red glow and blasted himself forwards, now having his reflections following suit. Be careful! Jaya called as she and the others tried to keep up.
Determined little worms!
The lowest reflection boasted with T's broken voice as he summoned 4 Nova runes from his hands. With a grunt, he sent them flying at the Voids in a bright display of fury. Deploying his father's spear, which had also been upgraded into a red shade, Void slashed one rune in half alongside another, while T and Vivian just dodged the other 2. Quickly flapping forwards, Void tackled his reflection's possessed body, sending the 2 of them spinning through the reality vortex, looking akin to 2 birds plummeting from the sky. With a punch, Void clashed a red burning fist down upon the dark reflection's face, which erupted into a mighty display of power. As Lotus faltered, Novasun quickly reared his spear back and jammed it into the slot of V's chest, trying to pry it open and get the dark heart out.
No!
The beast screamed before releasing a condensed energy pulse. Losing his balance, Void fell off the beast and quickly reached out, catching himself by V's orange scarf. However, losing his spear in the process. Flying backwards, the weapon nearly stabbed into the other Voids and disappeared into the abyss forever. Thankfully though, Pofnu soared forwards and caught the weapon, having used her tails as a launching impulse. Dangling by the scarf, Void in the darkness spun through the air once more. Contorting his right hand into a blaster, Lotus attempted to shoot Void, but was suddenly halted by T landing upon his back. "Sorry about this," he exclaimed before summoning his axe and slashing it down in the V's right shoulder sphere. Howling in pain rage, the Lotus within tried to shake T off when Vivian approached and delivered a frosty kick to his chest, denting it down and hitting the heart within. Roaring again, the beast went to strike Vivian down with a deployed blade, but Void swiftly came in and unleashed a few bolts of yellow energy into the monster's chest, halting him once again. "Let him go!" Void screamed as he began to rapidly punch and smash his fist in the V's chest. Sparks flew into the air, chunks of old rusted metal scratched off, all while the other Voids attempted to hold Lotus down.
No! No!
With a bellowing scream of fury, the fallen Void unleashed a mighty pulse that sent everyone off and back towards the kids and Jidas. Spiraling back through the vortex stream, a shattered glass opening appeared, an opening to wherever this Lotus had been fleeing to. Turning around, the possessed Matterbird flapped its wings and soared right through to the other side. All looking back forwards, the now fully formed team eyed the glowing rift and silently agreed to head on through. "Prepare yourselves," Void stated as they all turned into a diving position and crossed through to the unknown world that this Lotus presumably called home. Journeys Ahead Beyond Trilogy Part 2 Finale One Last Dance. Written and narrated by T.S. ProArt. Blasting through to the other side, Void, his family, as well as his reflections, all landed to their feet in a brand new and terrifying world. Plopping on sloppy, black mud sprinkled with snow, the group of heroes slowly stood to their feet and took in their surroundings, which was a haunting sight. Oh my god. T muttered with absolute horror, for dark matter was everywhere. Standing upon the tree line to a forest of dead life, the group took in the sight of large and small, pulsating vines of darkness, littering the nature around themselves. The sky above had been clouded over in the dark gray clouds that flashed with silent red lightning above. A deep shaded snow also gently fell from these depressing glooms above, that left everyone in an uneasy stance. Lotus was nowhere to be seen. He had practically disappeared, leaving the others to wonder and look on ahead through this darkened and ashy world. Wait a second. Is that? Tiger asked with a point forwards as everyone laid their eyes upon an old, run-down, lifeless mall. The building was large and rotted, looking to have once had many bright colors and vibes. Dark matter tendrils stretched up and around its now grayed out form as it sat in front of a massive and eerily empty parking lot. The mall. T stated, leaving Void and the others to turn their heads with curious stares. The mall? Void asked, as everyone slowly began to traverse forwards. In my universe, before permanently staying in Salvaheim, me and my friends, the ones who wear the items that V was holding on to, we lived here. It was a home for so many of us. I mean, it's still fine and inhabited by a few of them in my world, but to see it like this. He explained as everyone crossed and stepped onto the parking lot. Leaning down, Bode felt the ground and winced, clutching his fist before fully standing upright.
This is his home,
he stated while activating a golden spear.
Be prepared for anything.
Walking up, Pofnu tapped her father's shoulder and handed him back his spear. You, dropped something. She joked with a tiny smile that Void had always found comforting. Thank you, sweetheart. He replied before scratching her head and leading forwards. As Void said, be ready for anything. Nodding to this, the Jaidas charged their energies up, Pofnu her spectral essence, Joby her light matter, Vivian her frost, and T his battle axe. Marching onwards, the group turned their heads and took notice of the skeletal remains of an old spacecraft, long and sharp, looking akin to a military stealth bomber. It had most certainly been decaying for a long while, but T suddenly recognized its metals. Its dark, steel metal that could only belong to one group of individuals. That's Ameliorite tech. Must have belonged to the Neo ones that V talked about. T theorized as Jaida took in a cold breath and huddled beside Void. So, what exactly was the Matter War? You all keep mentioning it, but what was it about? Vivian questioned as they crossed through to the halfway point of the parking lot. Years ago, Salvaheim, back then known as the Matter Realm, lived in peace, until my brother, Core Matter, grew power-hungry and made a change in the world, the amelioration movement. T began as they all continued onwards. Back then, in my now extinct culture, Matter births were sent down by her mother, Matira, to replace the other after a certain amount of years. Core, not wanting to give up his rule, cast my little baby self into another dimension, sparking a war between his followers and the natural order who believed in the Matter births. Growing up in a different realm, I was unaware as to who I was, but I soon found myself being taken in by my friends years later. T revealed as they neared ever closer to the mall's front doors. One day, though, by curiously looking through my memory drives, I discovered my legacy, who I was. I then returned to the Matter Realm only to find it in the middle of the war. You know the rest. Jida found me, we trained, she died, I led, beat my brother, and restored the balance of the multiverse. In the end, I returned back to this place. T stated as he gestured towards the mall. After a few more adventures involving flaming knights, my own memories taken form, my mother Matira, breaking the balance, ghosts, my daughter, tracking matter beings, restoring said balance, I decided to finally settle down. So, long story short, it was your average story that kinda sounds like Wars of the Stars. T finished, leaving the others to nod. Given what V said, it seems as though you two are rather similar. Jida assumed, as they all began the march up the mall's entrance steps. Yeah, only difference being that my events weren't controlled by a Lotus. I don't even know if my universe has one. But I can't imagine everything terrible in my life being played and controlled by one evil force. Poor V. T replied as they approached the front doors that were locked together through thick, stone-hard dark matter. Damn. Looks like we're gonna have to find another way inside. Void stated as he began to glance around. I would open a portal, but I don't want to alert our evil heart friend and give away our location. Void stated as he looked for another entrance as well. Over there. Povnu exclaimed as she pointed towards a large, broken open hole within the side of the mall's outer wall, looking to lead inside an upper floor. Good eye. Void stated as everyone turned and made their way over. Leaping in, they all quietly slid themselves into an upper hall that looked to once house neon lights, walls, and a glossy floor, along with large pillars that stretched up to the ceiling. However, they were now covered in the muck of darkness that most certainly came from the heart itself. The hall also looked damaged, like a big fight had taken place within it. A terrible fight. A nasty one. It's just like home, but wrong. T whispered in a sad expression as everyone quietly maneuvered forwards. The mall was quiet, eerily quiet. No sound outside of the inner wind draft was heard. For such a place designed for large gatherings, it was just wrong to hear nothing. I've never heard this place so quiet. There's usually someone running around, one of my buddies summoning magic, flying, watching movies and having fun. Why do I feel sad? T asked himself as Tiger gently rubbed his shoulder. Because this isn't how it was meant to be. Believe me, I understand. Vivian said as she glanced around the mall's hall through her helmet visor. Seeing a place that was once a comfort to only become an empty space, where joy and love once thrived, and only to become nothing in the end. Be happy this isn't your actual home, T. Because some of us don't have one to return to, or be re-welcomed to. Vivian said in a dour tone, before Void raised a hand and rested it upon her shoulder as a means of comfort. After walking on for only a short few moments more, the group turned a corner and found themselves entering into a large balcony ledge that overlooked a giant main hub area. Oh, wow. Joey whispered as everyone approached an old rail and looked over the ledge. Above, the cracked glass roof cast a cold gray shine to the mall's front, revealing the infested escalator stairs, checkered floors, gift shops, and large throne in the center that had been empty. With a huff, Void and the others hurtled the rail and landed to the floor, looking around themselves, only to see nothing of note. Be alert, the Spark said, as everyone began to fan out. Walking together, the two Jaidas approached a gift shop to their right-hand side, one that once looked to hold tons of old toys and stuffed animals, all now having rotted away to nothing. With a squeak below her shoe, Jaida looked down with her purple stare and took notice of a teddy bear, one missing an arm and eye, but having a cute little bow tie that had been withering away. Reaching down, she picked the small teddy up and eyed it with sorrow. Oh, poor buddy. She whimpered before pocketing the teddy behind her cloak. On the other side, Vode and Joby examined the walls and roof above. They had all once looked to have been colorful and full of life, brimming with character that had now passed on into a sorrowful future.
Don't look, child,
Vode stated as he turned his head and eyed the pile of empty and slaughtered void bodies. Too late, Joby replied as a knot began to grow within her stomach. Together, Void, Vivian, T, and Pofnu all approached the throne, curious to see what its whole deal was. Man, in my world, a great tree bloomed from where the seat was. A beautiful tree that connected us all together. What a bastardization. The Matterbirth spat as Void reached out and felt its chair arm. As he did this, his newfound connection to the mirror space adapted to the throne, causing the same map that Lotus had used to activate. Whoa, Vivian stated while retracting her helmet as everyone regrouped and stared at the large moving image. What the hell? Is this another multiverse map? Jaida asked as it reminded her of Void's back from when they first met. As Vode examined it, he took notice of two blue, one red, one yellow, and pink dots collected together in the center. Looking around, he took notice of other dots around the map in strange swirls and patterns. As he thought about it, his brain began to quickly piece it all together.
No, this is some kind of soul map. I believe this may be us right here,
Vode theorized as he glanced at Void's connected embrace to the image. But Tira's might. This is how he tracked us. He was watching our every move. T exclaimed in shock as everyone gazed upon their markers. Wait, if you're red, he's blue, she's pink, and he's yellow, who the hell is the second blue one? Pofnu asked while pointing at the marker. That's probably me, fellas. A voice suddenly called from the side. Whirling their bodies, everyone looked up only to see a tiny, chibi-looking Void in a cage, staring back at them with little white dot eyes. What the hell? Joby exclaimed as they all stared up at the little guy. Hi? Void asked with a wave as the little guy stared back in a jittery mood. Dudes, I don't know what you're doing here, but you gotta get out of this place. There's a freaking monster in here. The chibi Void shouted with a shaken breath. Can you also get me out of this thing? I'll do anything. I can dance. I can do funny cartoon stuff. Please, I've been cooped up here for months. Please. He went on as Vivian took a step forwards. Sure, she said before summoning a Nova Rune and throwing it. Cutting the chain free, the cage fell with a quick tussle and creak. Upon landfall, the top hatch opened and rolled out the tiny 2.5 foot tall Void, who both squeaked and squished with every tumble. Phew! Thanks, bigger sister. I was starting to think I would die in there. Wait, you guys are the good guys, right? The little guy asked as he sat on his rear, looking up like a little kid. Oh, you poor thing. Why were you all locked up in that nasty cage? Jaida exclaimed as she reached down and picked the small Void up. Oh, you're so cute. I could just eat you up and snuggle you to death. Jaida exclaimed, thinking this Void that had been a small child of some kind. Ma'am, I don't know who you are, and I'm 47. Could you please put me down? The little void revealed, causing Jaya to gasp and drop him back to the ground. Oh my god, I am so sorry, she said with an awkward and startled stare as the little guy landed to his feet. All good, Toots. It happens a lot, the little guy stated as Void and his reflections knelt down with slight chuckles. Sorry about that. My wife's a hugger. What's your name? Void asked as he reached a hand out towards his smaller counterpart. I'm Void, but you can call me Chibi. I take it yours is the same, the little guy asked as he shook Void's glowing red finger. Yep. This here is T, Vivian, Vode, my wife Jida, T's wife Tiger, and my 2 daughters, Joby and Pofnu. Void introduced as his 2 daughters waved with small smiles. Ah, how kind. Nice to meet you guys. Now let's book it! Chibi shouted as he began the run with his legs spinning around, looking akin to how Sonic the Hedgehog or the Roadrunner from Looney Tunes ran. He wasn't fast, rather slow. It's just that he appeared to be a very animated figure. Wait, Chibi! Void called as the little spark ran for the exit doors. Yet, before he could even attempt to open the locked barriers, a massive, dark matter spike arose that sent him shouting and bouncing back towards the group. Yeah! Gasping, everyone ran towards his falling body, that ended with Vivian catching him in her arms. Uh-oh, Jida exclaimed as the audible sounds of heavy wings flapping came from behind. Turning around and readying their weapons, Void and his team looked up and watched as the possessed reflection slowly descended from a crack in the glass above. With his mask sealed back over his face, the beast snarled with a primal growl and deployed his mirror space blades, looking as though the devil had appeared before their very eyes. Lotus! This is your last warning! Let him go! Void demanded as he activated his battle mask, which was now glowing with red panel lines of power.
Oh, you would want that, wouldn't you?
The beast boasted before blasting down and releasing a shockwave so strong it sent Void and the others blowing back and out of a shattering and crumbling entrance wall. Flipping around, everyone landed to their feet with their weapons ready. Both Void and Vode stanced their spears, Jida her fire, Tiger and Pofnu their spectral essences, Joby and T their blades, Vivian her frostbiter, and now Chibi, who frowned and pulled out a cartoon-shaped frying pan. Flying out and landing to the ground, the fallen Void raised his head and beamed a devilish stare upon the heroes, who all glared back, ready to fight.
You're all foolish. What makes you think you can save him, let alone beat me? You can't kill a shadow, remember?
Lotus boasted as everyone stood defiantly. Unlike last time, you surprised us, but now we are more than prepared. Void boasted as he charged his newfound cherry-colored power. Orb Assault! On me! Break open his chest and take out the heart! Void commanded, solidifying and commanding his newly fresh team for the very first time.
Orb Assault?
Lotus asked with a slight tilt in his head. Yeah, it's a band thing, Vivian retorted with a smirk as Team Orb Assault charged the monster, who growled and charged right back. Flapping forwards, Lotus spun and then clapped his wings together, creating a sudden surge of dark matter that rise from the ground. Halting all those except for Void, he quickly spun his spear and leapt upwards with a sonic red surge to his feet. Coming right back down, he clashed his father's upgraded blade upon a now rising mirror space dagger. Gruffing, Lotus pushed and then flung Void back into the air. Going right back up, the spark retracted his spear and deployed a newly evolved weapon. Transforming out of his left hand, emerged two bent metal rods, one from above and below. These then connected together with an energized cherry-colored wire that emerged with an audible zap. Appearing before it, then came three energized arrows that Void suddenly pulled back and released. As these three attacks struck V's possessed body, a flash of purple appeared before the falling dark matter rise, being followed up with Jida using her evolved fire to fly. Soaring above the ground with purple flames from her hands and feet, she shoved both of her fists forwards and clashed them into the chest of the Matterbird. As impact came, it sent him sprawling back and flying upwards in pain. Scowling, charging, and flying upwards with a burning fist, Jida punched the monster in his chest again, leaving him to howl in pain rage. Activating his eye, he blasted down upon Jida's levitating form, which sent her bracing and deflecting back to the ground.
Foolish reflections! You truly believe you can win this fight?
Lotus asked as he landed back down with a surge, blowing both Jida and Void back upon sliding feet. 4 Voids and a couple of badasses? I'd say we stand a pretty good chance, bub. He exclaimed as he ran forwards through the matter with his 2 blue energy blades out wide. Honey, give me a charge! He then asked as his wife soared over and flew into his body. Igniting to life with an orange haze, T started to chuckle with orange eyes as he began his attack. Tiquid, arms! He then called, resulting in 2 long spectral slime limbs shooting out from the canister behind his back. Latching on the Lotus, T, using his wife's essence, blasted himself forwards with such speed the monster had no time to react. Plunging his blue and orange tinted blades into the reflection's chest, T began to tug and twist to break away the metal. However, Tiquid's hold could only last for a few moments. V, if you're in there, you gotta help us fight! You hear me? You gotta fight! T called, trying to reach the soul inside, but only caused just a mere flicker of green to be seen.
Be gone, veteran!
Lotus said, before releasing a pulse and sending both T and Jida away. Flying through the air like miniature rockets, came in Void's right and left arm, blasting forwards with visible golden exhaust blasts escaping their sides. With one strike and another, the 2 chunks of metal punched and smashed in the V's chest, before suddenly going back to the main man himself. He was now charging once again with a reactivated spear, with both Vivian and Chibi riding upon his back. Give me a charge, sister! Void asked as he prepared to strike. Shimmering her eyes, Vivian raised her frostbiter hand and summoned the surrounding snow's essence to Void's spear tip, charging it up with a surge of condensed cosmic frost. Sliding himself to a halt, the yellow spark raised his weapon up and stabbed it into the ground, freezing the pavement as well as the shadow's legs in place. Taking her chance, Vivian leapt upwards, charged a Novaroon fist, and smashed it in the V's chest. You gotta fight it, kid! You have to! We're not gonna leave you till this bastard dies! Vivian exclaimed, falling back into his sense of how she used to act before her life fell apart. Noble, heartfelt, a hero, as one would put it. Yeah, whatever the big lady says. Chibi exclaimed as he raised his cartoon pan up and smacked it across the Shadow's face, knocking his mask clean off. Recoiling back around with the look of an angry cobra, Lotus, using V's abilities, released a heavy pulse of dark matter that sent everyone around him away, for his legs to break free.
Arise, my children! Aid me in this fight!
He then called, while raising a clawed hand up. From the dark matter below their feet, ameliorates began to rise, slimy, humanoid-looking creatures, all with glowing red and melting forms. Ugh! Not these things! I hate these things! T shouted with recognition as both him and Tiger began to fight back alongside Joby and Pofnu, who engaged the monsters while their parents, Fode, Vivian, and Chibi took on the Shadow.
Why try to kill the unkillable?
All the monsters croaked in unison as Joby slashed one away with her golden blades. I can think of 2 reasons, you freaks! Joby snapped while sharpening her 2 yellow Nova blades. Suddenly from the other side, Pofnu leapt in and summoned her Naginata, that suddenly split and transformed into 2 glowing pink katanas. With a combined slash, she took out several of the monsters before narrowing her gaze upon Joby with a smirk. Actually, sister, I can think of 4 reasons. Hofnu exclaimed as she too rose her sharpened double blades. Nodding with a returning smirk, the two Nova Sun sisters began to both slice and dice through the monsters, giving the others a well-needed leverage in their battle. "Come on, V! Fight it! Fight!" Void exclaimed as he threw two Nova runes into the monster's chest, denting and loosening it more and more as he stumbled back. V's voice broke through the dark as a glitching mess, while his eyes flashed between both good and evil. He repeated again before Lotus took back over.
Enough!
He continued while contorting both his wings into sharp dagger-like spikes. Dodging, Void and the others flipped and maneuvered out of the way as the fallen Matterburf stumbled.
You will all die today! You will...
Suddenly shouting in pain, V took back over and retracted the spikes into his body. Clutching his right hand, the poor Matterburf crumbled into his knees and began to smash and punch his own chest. Tears spilled from his eyes as he screamed in pained rage, all while the others looked on in dismay. "Fight, V! Fight!" Void exclaimed as the poor Matterburf was quickly taken back over.
He's too strong!
He cried before a sharp pulse of energy released from his horns.
Correct.
Lotus said before Void launched himself back in with a punch. "No, he's weak. I know this feeling, V. Feeling as though you can't surpass something that seems so impossible." Void exclaimed as now both him and Jida commenced the monster in a lethal blow-to-blow combat. "The Lotus from my universe took everything from me, as he did you. My family, my friends, everyone. I wanted to give up, to die, but a part of me kept fighting. I found peace, I found love, just as you will. Fight him, brother! Fight him!" Void expressed with words from the soul that caused the dark reflection's eyes to flicker.
I can't!
V stuttered through before unleashing another energy pulse, blowing the two of them away.
You think words of encouragement will win this fight? Pathetic.
Lotus barked as Void suddenly leapt in with a spear slash. "I'm afraid I have never fought a Lotus, nor known him from my world. But I know what it's like to lose, to see everything around you burn to cinders. But I kept moving. I kept fighting." Void shouted as he clashed his weapon with the Shadow's mirror space blades. "Although trapped in a world of my own making, one thing remained. I wanted to live, just as you will. Fight, kid! Fight it!" Void expressed, causing the monster to flinch and stumble with a green pulse.
What are you doing?
Lotus growled as his eyes buzzed with green. "V, listen to me!" Vivian shouted as she lunged forwards and pinned the larger Void's body to the ground, freezing his sharp hands to the pavement in order to keep him bound. "I gave up on my life. The whole world gave up on me. I retreated, battled my own demons to just stay alive. It's not a good feeling. But you've been through worse, far worse than myself," Vivian boasted as frosty tears spilled from her eyes. "I won't allow anyone else to feel this guilt, this shame. You did what you thought was right, only for it to blow up in your face. But you still have a chance to make amends with those demons. For all those you loved, for the sake of those you lost, honor them. Fight back! Fight!" Vivian boasted as Chibi spoke up himself. Yeah! Kick his ass!" he exclaimed before both him and Vivian got flung off V's body by another pulse. This one, now twinged with green energy.
Stop it! You can't have him!
Lotus screamed as his legs began to buckle. V bellowed through as everyone else joined into the fight, with T lunging first and pinning the fallen against the broken metal of the Neo-Ameliorite ship. Using the handle of his axe, T pressed it into the Matterburf's neck before speaking. "V, you and I are more alike than you realize. The war, this mall, your friends. If they're anything like mine, then this isn't what they would have wanted. They would want you to fight on." He exclaimed as dark matter began to ooze from V's panel lines. Are you not a matter birth? A leader? Is this who Jaina taught you to be? T boasted with strong words that left a majority of the others stunned by his drill sergeant-like tone. You're a god of the light and the dark. You're a resident of the mall. A friend. A brother. A father. Don't let this little glob of flesh control your soul. I believe in you. T exclaimed with a smile before suddenly getting pushed away. Tumbling forwards, the fallen void began to suddenly shrink in size to only being about 5 inches taller than Vode. Like a broken robot, V spasmed and twitched as he flashed between purple and green shades. His body parts looked to shift, rattle and shake as tendrils of black and red darkness wiggled their way out of his metal pores. For lack of a better term, V was now equivalent to a spider blown up in a microwave. He looked like something from a horror film as he tried to desperately fight back. Come on, V! Jaina shouted as everyone surrounded the fallen Matterbirth, who was now laying down on the snow-covered ground, screaming in absolute agony. V! Honey! Listen to me! Listen to me! Tiger suddenly shouted as she flew up and levitated a few feet over V's twisting body. Jaina! He whimpered in a hoarse voice while trying to open his chest. All the tendrils from his body now swung rapidly, preventing the others from getting close and helping. Lotus was now panicking within, it seemed. V! Come on, Sugar! You can do this! I know you can! Tiger called as a broken set of tears spilled from V's contorting face. I can't! Closing her eyes and focusing upon V's soul, Tiger's orange hues suddenly shifted into gentle blue glows and then to a familiar red. Reopening her eyes with slight tears, she began to speak again, now in a more confident light. V, deep within your soul, there's 2 voices shouting to the dark. 2 voices begging you to live on. Tiger exclaimed with sorrow as V listened in through the pain. Deep inside, I can hear my own voice. She's still with you, V. Jaina has always been with you, as well as another. Tiger stated, recalling upon her daughter, Jane, who she had been carrying before dying in the war, in turn, letting her spirit get bound to T. It appeared that the same course of history went for V as well. Fight for her, V! Fight! Fight a Matterbirth! Tiger shouted as her tears fell and landed to V's cheek. Jaina. The fallen Matterbirth whispered as a small part of his soul, although faint, called out to him in a voice so small it was almost impossible to hear. Her voice. Rise. With his buzzing eyes surging to a full green shade, the purple upon V's body shifted into a dim and more lively shade of color. V's low-saturated mechanical body mashup had now reverted into the same color palette Void had donned when he was a child. Green crests, orange yellow shoulder sphere, low metal grays added with a beautiful shine of emerald light. Scowling, V suddenly rolled over to a one-kneed stance in heavy breaths. Growling with his own Matterbirth essence, V fought back against his inner restraints and lashed his claws around the 2 sides of his chest hatch. With a pained scream, he ripped both hatches off and threw them aside, leaving everyone to watch in both shock yet anticipation as V found his own strength. No more, he growled as he reached his right hand inside and stabbed his claws into the heart that bellowed a haunting scream. No more! V howled again with a bright green surge and forceful tug. Using all of his strength, V with a disgusting rip and tear broke and shredded the Matterheart away from his chest. With an ending primal scream, he reared his arm back and threw the organ away, above his reflection's head, into the snow-ridden pavement in a wet, bloody, and disgusting landfall. He was free. For just a fleeting moment, it seemed as though things had finally turned around for once. However, not even a second after V chucked the heart, his green eyes dimmed and he entirely collapsed to the snow-ridden ground. V! Tiger exclaimed as everyone immediately ran to aid the fallen Matterbirth. Swooping down, Tiger held her husband's variant within her arms as Joby and Pofnu slid down to begin the healing process. Upon flipping him over, however, everyone took in the sight of a devastating reality. No. Void muttered with tense red glows as Jida covered her mouth alongside the others, giving horrified faces. V didn't just rip out the Lotus heart. He had ripped out his actual heart as well. The Lotus heart had completely fused with the organ inside, resulting in what had essentially been a suicide. Whether that was V's intention or not, they would never know. He was gone now. Shit. Vivian shouted with a punch to the ground as she turned around and held the back of her head in disdain. No. Oh no, he was serious. Vogue stayed in dismay, while T just shook his head and knelt by V's side. No, he can't. The Matterbirth said in sorrow, while Pofnu and Joby just looked at one another in disbelief. Oh my god. What are we gonna do? Do we still try and help him? Do we bury him? Jida asked with crossed arms as everyone started to spout their own thoughts. He can't be dead. Not like that. I've died once before and came back with ease. There's no way. T exclaimed as he began to search for some kind of pulse. He looks pretty dead, dude. Vivian shouted as everyone started to bark back and forth. However, that's when Chibi heard a sound from behind. A fleshy and wriggling sound. Slowly turning his head, the little spark locked his eyes onto the dark matter heart, sitting in the snow, wiggling. Guys? He asked as the heart began to suddenly shake and pulsate, gushing out with globs of blood and darkness amidst the chattering. Hey guys! Chibi spoke again, while tugging on Void's back and red kilt piece. The heart was now looking to implode from the inside. Its flesh and muscles expanded, twitched, and pulsated as something seemed to be trying to fight its way out. Guys! Chibi screamed, this time getting everyone's attention. What? They all shouted with hurtful whirls until they all stared upwards, seeing the heart as it suddenly popped with a horrific scene. Bursting from its flesh, long and sharp ribs along with other bones started to expand and grow from the heart's beating and bleeding form. All gasping in disgust, everyone stood back and watched as a massive, humanoid and monstrous form began to build itself over the heart. A layer of muscle and nerves quickly covered the form skeleton, which easily stood to be 15 feet or so in height, matching the same as Void's Lotus. Folding over these muscles emerged dark, grayish red-black matter that suddenly hardened over upon certain body segments. Growing out of its right shoulder sprouted a sharp chunk of this rock-like material that almost looked akin to a jagged horn from a rhinoceros. As its hands folded out, it revealed 6 fingers on each murky palm that had glowing red eyes within both of their centers. Another eye then suddenly appeared right below the chest cavity of the Matter Beast, as more of the darkness took hold. Stumpy, elephant-ridged, sharp-clawed toes appeared around lumpy, melting ankles as the rest of the heart's real body took shape. Looking up with one glowing red eye attached to a gooey and fleshy head, a nasty, pulsating brain spouted with a sharp-toothed smile. This was the Lotus Reflection's true form. The Puppet Master, the evil from V's world, the Emperor of the Dark. Giving a joyous expression, Lotus resummoned his wings, levitated back up, and ignited his eyes and his hands to life, only saying one thing to the reflections before attacking in his true form.
It appears your journey has reached its end.
Reaching his 6-clawed hands out and in front of himself, Lotus charged his palm eyes and unleashed a duo set of hot energy beams downwards. Move! Void called in a panic as everyone dodged out of the way. As the beam struck the ground, V's lifeless corpse went sprawling away from the impact and landed into the woods behind, while Orbasalt ran in 2 different teams. To the left, Void, Jida, T, Tiger, and Pofnu evaded, while Vivian, Vode, and Joby, who was carrying Chibi, sprinted towards the right. Above, slowly turning his hands to trail behind the smaller life forms, Lotus merely grinded his teeth with a low cackle leaving his mouth.
Foolish children of the natural order, you're no different compared to the others I have slain.
Ceasing his blast and simply flicking his arms up, Lotus caused the ground to suddenly split and erupt with dark matter geysers, splitting the groups up into a newly heated environment. Closing a singular eye upon his face, Lotus continued to smile and charged his brain with a red glow.
Let's see what makes you all tick,
he stated before flapping his wings and shooting down to the ground. Stumbling forwards, Void coughed and wheezed through the darkened geyser mist. It had been so thick and messy that not even his battle mask could see through.
Jida!
The spark called as he did his best to march on. Over here! She suddenly replied from the near side. Turning and instantly following his wife's voice, the red glinting spark shimmered as lights to continue onwards. One step after the other, Void carefully walked and reached out before taking hold of something that felt to be her hand. Freckles! He asked. Void! You found me! Jida said, only for Lotus to step out from the mist, revealing Void had actually grabbed his finger.
You found me!
He repeated, mimicking Jida's voice. Before Void could scream, the monster reared back and punched him backwards, sending Void sprawling and shouting in pain.
Void Novason, son of Nova and Celeste, slayer of glitches, failed father. Is all this really over one little boy?
Lotus asked as he used his brain to read Void's own mind. Standing back up, the spark activated his battle axe, which shimmered and beamed with a ruby-red haze. Without saying a word, he launched himself forwards, slashing at Lotus, who simply dodged and deflected, using his own claws as blades.
I sense fear through every bolt and stream of electricity wriggling through your heart. You are truly unlike the others,
Lotus said in a low voice before disappearing into the matter below his feet. Where'd you go? Void asked as he began to carefully step around the sludge around him.
Couldn't save your people. Couldn't save your own brother. Couldn't save your best friend's little girl.
Lotus listed through the darkness as he suddenly arose from behind Void. Turning around, the spark got ready to slash, and only saw the outlined form of Jay being made up of the dark matter.
Couldn't even save your own son,
the fake said, leaving Void to hesitate and striking. With a sudden rise in dark matter, Lotus in his J form blew Void away with a mighty uppercut, causing him to lose his axe and fall back to the ground.
Fascinating. Couldn't even bring yourself to strike, even when you knew it wasn't him,
Lotus said through a snake-like tone as he transformed back into his regular self.
And you call yourself a leader.
Rushing in to aid their father, both Joby and Pofnu began to attack Lotus, who simply flapped and dodged, before commencing in a slash-to-clash strike back with his claws.
Light matter, my sweet, sweet sister. You were always so weak,
Lotus stated as he suddenly lunged down and snatched Joby by her throat. Sister! Pofnu shouted with a samurai form slash across Lotus's back spine that suddenly healed over as fast as it had been opened.
Mangy mutt!
Croaked the Emperor, before flinging Joby around and into her sister, sending the both of them back down into a sloppy pavement.
little brats are in over your heads. I have purified countless worlds, bent them to my will. I have burned you both from the inside out thousands of times over.
With heavy and bulky steps, the Lotus variant inched his way closer towards both Joby and Pofnu, who weakly looked up in strain, feeling petrified for their lives. "Leave them alone!" Vivian called through the mist, as she and Vode both broke through the darkness, finally finding their friends. With a slide, she raised her arms up and summoned several shards of ice to rise and blow from the snow behind. Behind her, Vode transformed his two forearms into blasters and began to rain hell upon Lotus, who did in fact stumble from this onslaught.
Ice and condensed energy, that really hurt.
Lotus sarcastically stated, as Jida suddenly leapt in from behind, ready to strum her guitar, only for the Emperor to strike a glob of matter out from his back and hit her away. Shape-shifting his arms into large hammer-looking weapons, Lotus leapt forwards with another flap and slammed downwards, creating a powerful impulse of red energy that sent the two reflections away.
Oh, Vivian. Poor, troubled Vivian. Are your actions truly in service for the boy, or is it just for yourself?
Lotus asked as he retracted his hammers and marched forwards.
And you, Vode? You haven't even made up your mind on whether you will help or not. Is it perhaps you are scared of failing, destroying another world? Or are you both just selfish in your fears? Or perhaps wanting to truly perish minus all this thought of wanting to live? If you so wish, I can make it nice and slow.
Lotus asked in his disgusting voice, as his face transformed between Vivian's Jida as well as Vode's Jida for added torture.
You know nothing of us. I will help save the boy. Not for me, but for them.
Vode stated before both him and Vivian were tied and shackled down by dark matter tendrils from the ground. No one deserves to suffer the way I've suffered. I will honor the ones I lost by aiding my friend, my brother. You can't break us, you freak. Vivian spat as Lotus got ready to strike, before suddenly getting pounced upon by T, who jumped in, mixed with Jida's essence. With one slash, he cut a massive gash into the Lotus variant's face, sending him screaming and falling backwards. As they fell, mist had finally cleared, revealing the others around, who were all injured and trying to stand or break free from their restraints. Chibi of which had been hiding from behind some rubble, watching with scared eyes. Weakly standing back up in an orange flare, T winced and coughed, feeling the weight of his age starting to grow upon him. Yet, before he could attack again, the Matterburf suddenly felt a grasping essence from around his soul, one that tightened around his matter, specifically his dark matter. What is... God! With a telekinetic push, T was suddenly lifted off the ground and smashed back into an old park van, one that had been set near the side of the Neo-Ameliorite's ruined ship remains. Looking up and being unable to move, even with Tiger attached, the married fused pair locked their sights upon Lotus, whose eye now healed back over. With a raised glowing hand, the Dark Heart connected himself to the Matterburf's essence and began to approach his pinned body.
T, you and V are so much alike. Matterburfs, abandoned as children, raised by the mall freaks, a war veteran who just couldn't shake their troubles. It's sad, really. You got to live out the life I never allowed him to have.
Lotus cackled out as the veins beneath T's metal began to bulge and pulsate with a burning blue essence.
How does it make you feel knowing that I not only destroyed his little children, but versions of your friends too? The Lying Luxner, the Emerald Butterfly, the Aether Dragon, the gun-slinging shape-shifting cat. Oh, if only I could remember their names instead of how I gutted them.
Lotus continued as T began to grasp in suffocating pain, leaving the others to weakly watch on.
V, real shame. He was my perfect host, a real conductor of power. But alas, as all great things tend to be, sometimes you just gotta start from the top.
Using his telekinesis, Lotus suddenly shifted and opened T's chest cavity, revealing his beating heart surrounded by a glowing essence. No! No! T exclaimed as the others watched in horror. Lotus, stop! For the love of God, don't do this! Void shouted in fright as he tried to stand, only to find dark hands pulling him back down.
I never received my god's love, only their hatred.
Lotus replied as he slowly began to infuse himself with T, who released a pained scream into the cold air. Slowly opening his eyes, V awoke to the sight of being within a bright environment, which caused him to wince and raise a hand up to shield the glow. As he did this, however, he suddenly realized that both his hands and arms looked normal. Eyes widening, the Matterburst sat up to find himself within a warm, pure white-colored forest that glimmered with multicolored lightning bugs flying around his body. Gasping, he first felt his chest, then his face. No scars, no cuts, no bruises. He was smooth and felt healthy. With a shaky breath, V stood back upon normal mechanical legs and looked around at his environment, in absolute shock. Where am I? He asked himself before the sounds of footsteps suddenly came from behind. Turning around, V at first stared with tensed eyes before suddenly dropping to a softer stare. There, walking through the light with a small smile on her face, was Jida. V's Jida. Looking identical to Tiger, but with a blue shade as opposed to orange. She also appeared to be carrying something within her arms. Jida? V asked with a shaken tone as he began to shakily walk towards her. Green eyes, she said with a voice that V had not heard in oh so long. Stumbling forwards and covering his mouth, tears spilled from the Matterburst's eyes as the two lovers reunited, now face to face. Oh my god, I'm sorry. I failed you, I failed everyone. I got them all killed. He made me murder them all. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. V wept as his Jida reached out and wiped his tears. Void, she quietly said before rubbing her forehead against his. Oh, my sweet Matterbirth, it wasn't your fault. You did what you thought was right. We know this, and they never blamed you for what happened. Jida stated, causing V to look up with watery eyes. They? He asked, before looking behind his Jida, only to see the distant spirits of Joby, Jay, along with his Nock and Maul friends, all waving to him from afar, looking at peace. We've always been by your side, keeping your mind alive within that monster. And you overcame him. I'm so proud of you. Jida expressed while wiping some more tears away from V's face. Can I join you? He asked with a whimpering tone. Sighing, Jida placed a hand to his green spark crest and locked her ocean-colored eyes with his nature greens before speaking again. Of course. But not yet. She revealed to V's sudden dismay. What? Why? I'm here. We're finally together again. Why? The Matterbirth asked as Jida gave him a stern look. Because they need your help. Your reflections. They can't beat Lotus alone. Jida sadly said as her eyes welled with tears. The Red One. He brought them all together in order to save his son. He's trapped, and only with the help of his reflections can his boy be saved. His Jay. Jida explained as V began to fade away into a green stardust. Looking down, the Matterbirth took in the sight of what was within his Jida's arms. It was a baby, a ghostly red Matterbirth baby wrapped up in her blue scarf. Looking up with green eyes, his green eyes, the child giggled and cooed the V's sudden shock, while Jida just smiled. Your journey is far from over, my love. Know that we will be here once it reaches its true end. I promise. Jida assured as V's form nearly faded. Leaning forwards, she gave the Matterbirth a longing kiss before he replied with the only 3 words he could muster. I love you, he said as the forest and his family faded. I love you too. Now, show them who you are, Jida said with a teary-eyed smirk before V suddenly awoke in the forest. From afar, he could hear the scream of T and the panicking sounds of his reflections, as well as their Jidas and children. The ones who had saved him, gave him a second chance. Scowling in rage, V's eyes buzzed with an electrified green as a sudden beating erupted from his once empty chest. Scowling with a flaming rage, Jida's flowing hair ignited into a beautiful lavender haze while standing upon her feet. Void, give me a matter extractor, she shouted with a spectral grape-colored energy blooming from her eyes.
Not sure if that's gonna work on him, Freckles,
Void replied as the hands continued to hold him down. Give me an extractor, damn it! She boasted while snapping her fingers and projectile warping one from within Void's arm hatch to be around her hand. Once the weapon's spikes extended from around her palm, Jida quickly leapt forwards and warped upon Lotus. With a sudden and knowing whirl, Lotus dropped T and quickly spun, slashing Jida into a spiraling levitation. Gruffing, she threw her hand out and around, blasting forth several sharp waves of fire towards Lotus, who flapped his wings and evaded, looking equivalent to a sliding duck atop an icy pond. Flapping upwards, he snarled upon Jida, before sending forward several spiked tendrils from the dark matter upon her. Using her new abilities of flight, she quickly dodged and swerved, drifting above the pavement like a figure skater to avoid whipping blades of darkness. Throwing her arm out again, Jida unleashed another dragon-headed fire blast, which Lotus quickly dodged by entering the matter below once again. Without wasting a second, he emerged behind Jida and blasted her with the full force of his energy beam. Shouting in pain, the musician found herself going numb and crashing hard, landing into the center of the parking lot as everyone else watched on, being entangled within the dark. Jida! No! Void bellowed as he began to cut and slash at his restraints. Groaning with steam fizzling off her body, Jida slowly looked up from her laying down position as Lotus began to approach her in heavy steps.
Jida Woods, failed mother, fearful of her own fate. I see you've come to note that not all of your reflections get happy endings. It's a sad cycle, really. Almost all of them fall or die at such a young age. You, however, you have been lucky.
Lotus stated with a smile as all of his eyes began to charge up.
Until now. Time to join the multiversal constant, Miss Novasun.
Lotus boasted as Void broke free from his restraints. No! No! He screamed, but as he began to sprint, Lotus unleashed a Titanic-sized combined beam upon Jida, who turned and looked at Void with a teary-eyed stare. "Void," she whispered, as all the reflections looked on in horror, realizing that this was going to be another staple in a Void story. However, before the blast could hit, something, or rather someone, interfered. As Void practically tackled into his wife, another force slid in and took the blast head-on. Wincing, Void, Jida, and the others took in a bright green shine that had illuminated to life, that deflected the red blast in a powerful display of fury. As their vision settled, an audible and united gasp erupted from everyone's mouth. For Jida's savior was V. Standing tall like a knight protecting his princess, V, with a massive green Novarune shield, stood his ground and deflected Lotus's blast. From within his chest, a blue and red mixed spectral ghost heart beamed to life. Healing around it, a brand new green matter birth crest covered its life-giving form, shaping together into a healed symbol of hope. Wincing with an emerald stare, V spun his Novarune to Lotus's sudden shock and spoke 4 words that gave all the Voids, as well as the 2 Jidas, chills.
"The cycle ends here."
Rearing his free hand back, V smashed it into the back of the Novarune, creating a powerful shockwave that sent Lotus flying back with a shout. V! Both Void and Jida exclaimed, getting the Matterbirth to look over his shoulder with a grateful stare.
"Is she okay?"
he asked. Patting herself down, Jida nodded with a teary-eyed smile as Void happily mouthed the words, "Thank you." From afar, Lotus slowly began to rise with the look of absolute disdain within his eyes, in turn, causing V's horns to shimmer with a powerful green haze.
"Help the others heal up,"
V commanded as his battle mask sealed over his face, now brimming with a green glow within its cracks.
"This fight is mine."
Extending out of V's arms appeared his mirror space blades that now shimmered with a green and earth-colored glow. Nodding their heads, Void and Jida backed off as the two, what had to be ancient rivals, eyed each other down, brimming with nothing but hatred for the other.
"Welcome back, old friend. Never thought we'd have this song and dance again."
Lotus croaked while sharpening his claws in the red glows.
"Anything you'd like to say?"
The beast beckoned as he readied himself into a battle stance. Squinting behind his mask, V charged up a pair of thrusters within his calves before saying 9 simple words, the very words he learned when fighting in the war. A war that Lotus had started, and a war that he was determined to end right here and right now.
"For those we lost, and for those we honor."
Blasting forwards in a powerful yet beautiful emerald glow, V raised his 2 blades and clashed them down upon Lotus's claws. At impact, it had created a shockwave of both red and green matter energy, all while Void and Jida began to free their weakened reflections as well as their children. With a rightwards clash, V slashed and connected his blades with Lotus's claws until swiping leftwards in a similar manner. With glass locking with talons, the embodiments of balance and darkness glared into each other's eyes. Years of hate, sorrow, anguish, and so much more was reflected off the other. War, the battles, lost homes and fallen family. Years of so much hate and pain had all led to this. All that mattered now was who would come out of this trench alive. Gruffing, V slashed Lotus's claws aside, jumped up, and forcefully rammed his emerald blades into the monster's shoulders, pinning the beast down and against a part of the mall's front wall.
"I will tear those reflections apart and take their spectral powers, just as I did with your pathetic little family."
Lotus growled as he began to push back with his much larger figure. You're gonna have to get through me first. This ends today, Lotus! V retorted with a scratchy voice before he was suddenly kicked off by the Emperor's large clawed foot. Grunting and somersaulting backwards, the Matterbirth quickly restanced himself and deflected several clashes from Lotus's now advancing and swinging form. Thrusting his left arm down, the Emperor smashed a shape-shifted arm blade towards V, in turn smacking it against his mask. From it, a dark purple energy that V's dragon friend once held erupted from impact. Spinning around from this, V rotated his torso around and double-slashed Lotus across his chest, before flipping back into an upright stance. From afar, Void and Jida successfully freed their injured, and all quickly dove behind a thrown-up chunk of concrete. As they did, one of Lotus's beams slashed the ground, creating a light show of greens and reds. T, Tiger, you guys okay? Vivian asked, as both Jida and Void embraced with a teary-eyed relief.
Hurt like hell, but we'll be okay. Thanks, Woods.
T thanked as both him and Tiger held hands in cold sweats. Anytime. The musician replied as Chibi peeked his head out from behind the concrete. Holy crap. Things are heating up, guys. Little Guy stated, getting everyone to peek out as well, watching the battle of balance and dark rage on. Flipping over Lotus, V slashes blades across his enemy's body once again, with a spray of darkness spewing from his wounds. After rolling over his back and landing, the Matterbirth was suddenly kneed in his face by the monster's sharp joint, only being guarded by the battle mask itself. Grunting and sliding across the pavement, the Matterbirth swiftly flipped back and dodged up, as Lotus stomped his clawed foot into the ground. With a glowing green, V unleashed a powerful pulse that had stuttered Lotus for only mere seconds, before the monster made his next move. Raising his hand forwards, the Emperor unleashed a condensed blast from his palm eye that just barely scraped V across his battle mask, leaving only a burn mark in its wake. Reaching up, V took hold of Lotus's extended hand and glared into his eye, the eye that had plagued his thoughts and nightmares for an incountable amount of years.
You truly think you can win this? You can't kill a natural force.
Lotus asked as he began to push against V's hold.
Last time I was foolish, arrogant, but now I'm prepared. I may not be able to kill you, Lotus, but I can stop you, even if it means fighting to my last breath.
V boasted before rearing back and punching his demon in the chest eye. Grunting, Lotus stumbled back, leaving the door open for V to kick flip backwards and strike his enemy in the lower jaw. Recoiling back from one another, the two enemies slid away and locked their eyes once more. Roughing, Lotus flung his arm out to the side in a stretchy way and entangled it around a massive thrown-up piece of concrete. Roaring, the Emperor swung the large chunk of stone up and towards V, who charged his fist up and punched the attack to rubble, all on a powerful green display. Snarling from behind the mask, steam vented through its cracks before he readied his weapons and charged again.
Damn, he's actually a good fighter.
T stated with astonishment as the two began the brawl once more.
Really good.
Vivian added as the two spun and slashed at each other, throwing up the snow and surrounding haze into a chaotic state.
Being a good fighter won't last him for long. We gotta help him,
Voight stated as everyone huddled back behind the concrete.
Agreed. But how would we be able to stop him? He's pure dark matter. You see how fast he heals, right?
Tiger exclaimed as everyone began to put their heads together.
That's just the problem. Matter hearts are naturally tuned with their native multiverse,
Void stated before Vivian spoke up. Then let's get back out there and pop that son of a bitch. Looking down, Void sighed before continuing on with his words.
That's the problem, sister. You can't destroy them. You can't kill a Matterheart. Like the natural order itself, they are ever-present, indestructible. Lotus is immortal. We can't beat it through natural means,
Void exclaimed to everyone's sudden dismay, before Void thought and suddenly got an idea. What if we're able to beat him through unnatural means?" he asked before pulling out Odin's book and opening up to the Beyond's passage. Theoretically, if we can conduct enough energy to open a portal to the Beyond, then shouldn't combining our own attacks provide a lethal blow strong enough to destroy him? Void questioned while looking up towards his siblings, while the two Jaidas took a step back alongside Joby and Pofnu. "It's not a bad idea, but hasn't this guy already been absorbing voids? Wouldn't he be in tune with this stuff already?" Chibi inquired while scratching the back of his head. "Maybe, but Void's got a valid idea though. Lotus says the four of us are different, stronger than the others. My cosmic frost, your spirit stuff, your electricity, and your..." Vivian stated, but halted upon Vode. "Solar flares," he revealed. Sure. If we were to force something unstable to a natural force, shouldn't that in turn break its own logic and fall apart?" Vivian asked, getting everyone to think on it more. Wait. Are you suggesting that we charge this guy up like a car battery somehow?" Chibi asked as he looked up at his reflections. "All Lotus has is natural matter essence. From what I could sense, he doesn't have her powers. He hasn't adapted to them yet. Void and Vivian may actually be onto something, even if it is a 50-50 chance," T stated as Void perked up. "If it works, this would possibly be equivalent to throwing a small bomb into a volcano. Just give it enough juice and..." he said before Vode finished. "His cells would fry from the imbalanced reality force, resulting in a condensed dimensional tearing acceleration implosion from his own soul," Vode shouted with a smile and fist punched to everyone's confused faces. "He'll blow up is what I'm trying to say." Nodding, Void summoned a Nova into his hand and looked towards the others with an inquisitive stare. "Can you four blast Nova beams as well?" Raising their hands up, the other reflections all summoned Nova runes that matched their main colors, revealing that they indeed could use the blast as well, or at least something similar. "Awesome. Let's, Void trailed off before he and the others locked their eyes upon the two Jaidas, who were both smiling like happy little kids. What?" Void asked, leaving them both to chuckle. "Oh, it's nothing, Red. It's just that you guys are all so cute when you work together," Jaida revealed, leaving the reflections to all reply with a smile. Suddenly from the battle, everyone heard V shout in pain, while Lotus roared with fury. All turning, everyone watched as the shadow flapped his wings and flew up towards the sky, carrying V by his sharp taloned toes. Before anyone could do anything to help, the pair were up and past the clouds, rising higher and higher, till suddenly breaching the Earth's atmosphere. Within space, dark matter tendrils soared and collected themselves upon stars and distant planets, all while V tried to fight back against his nemesis, who looked upon him with a wide-eyed and blood-shaded stare.
"You've once again put up a good fight, Matterbirth. But I'm afraid that history has begun to repeat itself once more."
Lotus exclaimed before reaching down and snatching him by the throat.
"In the end, you will be nothing more than a failure, a forgotten tale, a story that nobody will bother to remember. You're but a fallen angel."
Lotus growled as he began to loosen his grip.
"Just as before, I rise. And you, well, you already know."
Letting go, the monster released V, sending him shouting and plummeting back to Earth's orbit. Gasping and summoning Nova runes around his body, V found that he was unable to fly, for his wings had been lost long ago. All he could do was brace as best as he could for the impending impact. Igniting into a green fireball, V fell faster and faster before passing the clouds, soaring along the trees, and at last crashing through the roof of the mall with one mighty and powerful green blast that completely shattered the remaining windows and exposed the front into its entirety. The fallout blast afterwards was so strong that it even managed to blow Void and his side back nearly to the woods itself. Groaning and hacking out blood, V retracted his mask and weakly stood to one knee, shaking and wincing from the hit. The fact that he didn't die again was a miracle in its own right, he thought, while rolling his shoulders in strain. Oh. He groaned, before Lotus suddenly landed back into the maw as well, glowing with a pure matter fury. Turning, V scowled towards the enemy, who smirked right back. The two now stood about 20 feet apart from one another, creating a Western standoff-like image. In unison, V threw out his right arm, while Lotus ignited his chest eye. Blasting out came both a green Nova Rune beam as well as a dark matter red blast that both instantly locked together and fought against their own power levels. Digging his heels into the ground, V pushed back with all his might, while Lotus just continued to smile and spit.
I'll tell you one thing, V. You always had a heart. But sometimes, caring and friendship doesn't win the war.
The monster stated in his nasty voice as his red beam began to push back against V's.
Just give up. What is there to even fight for? Your friends are gone. Your matter realm destroyed. Every ounce of what you had is now ash. Tell me, Matterbirth, what do you still have?
Grunting, V began to sweat as the red beam inched closer and closer. He wouldn't give up. Not again. He had to keep fighting. As Jida said, this isn't how his story ended. There were voids on the line, innocent worlds. He couldn't give up. He tried to answer as the dark beam nearly reached his hand. He'll have me! Void suddenly called as he slid in to be beside V's left side. Throwing his hand out, the spark unleashed a red Nova beam that suddenly intertwined itself within V's green blast, slowing the stream to a standstill. Lotus asked in surprise, as the Matterbirth perked up and looked down to Void, whose mask was now retracted, exposing his face. Looking up, the red spark gave a stern smile and nod to his emerald-colored counterpart, before T suddenly appeared at V's right side. And me! He exclaimed with a smile, while blasting out a blue spectral beam that wrapped itself within Void's and V's green and red blast, now mixing with a beautiful shade of blue. Me as well! Vivian bellowed as she slid beside Void and unleashed a pink frosty Nova blast into the mix, causing Lotus' stream to falter. And don't forget us! Void called as both him and Chibi appeared and fired out both a yellow and blue blast from their hands. In stunned and grateful shock, V looked from his left and right as his reflections all combined their attacks into one powerful stream of color. Oh, don't leave us out of this team-up! Jada exclaimed as she warped in and blasted a stream of fire from her hands, adding a purple cosmic flame into the mixture. We stand by your side, V! Pavnu exclaimed as she charged her body up into a pink shade, alongside Tiger igniting orange. Together, they both unleashed a spectral blast into the beam, while Joby used her Nova Rune blast to add a sprinkle of light matter for extra effect. You mess with one of us, you mess with all of us! She exclaimed as the power stream suddenly took over Lotus' own beam and suddenly began to rebound into his chest.
What? What is this? Why do I feel?
He exclaimed in shock as he began to buckle under his own feet.
How are you?
Suddenly from beneath Lotus' skin, his veins began to suddenly swirl with light and color, which caused his whole form to start shaking and writhing in agony. For the first time ever, Lotus gave a brand new expression, one that was so uncanny even for a monster such as himself.
No! No, you can't do this! That power belongs to me!
He called before being slammed back into his throne, which now pinned him in a stuck position against the blast.
You can't do this! If I'm gone, you won't be able to salvage this home, you idiot! This isn't what a Matterbirth's supposed to do! Who the hell do you think you are?
Lotus asked as all the eyes on his body, except for his head, explode with light. Didn't you hear the lady? We're Orb Assault. V snapped right back with a tiny smirk before igniting green and unleashing a final push into the blast, igniting Lotus along with the entire ball into one final and powerful, beyond adduced strike back. As the light settled back to its normal, darkened haze, everyone focused forwards and set their sights upon Lotus, who now had a gaping hole in the center of his chest. Dangling by a burnt and withered nerve ending, the dark heart within now looked akin to a shriveled up grape. Its color had faded, turning into a grayed and blackened out tar. With one gentle breeze, the nerve snapped, tumbling down upon his chest, bouncing off the seat, and finally landing to the floor. The heart cracked apart and crumbled to dust. The theory was correct. A natural force was unable to withstand an unnatural balance, a beyonder balance, resulting in defeat. Lotus gasped out in shock while slumping into his throne. Looking up with blood seeping from his mouth, the Emperor of the Dark set his sights upon V, who had now been marching forwards with his reflections close behind. With a stern and angered face, the Matador stood before his enemy, who now stared back with a weakened stare. It appeared that their eternal dance had finally reached its end.
So, this is what it feels like.
Lotus whispered as he reached up with his left hand to feel the hole in his chest, before witnessing it crumble to dust before his very eyes. With a shaken posture, Lotus now watched as the entirety of his left arm withered away and dissolved to dust as well. As its chunks landed to the ground, small spectral wisps of souls began to rise and fade into the light, souls of the murdered voids that Lotus had absorbed through V's mechanical body. He chuckled while everyone watched him with silent, hate-filled eyes.
Have you nothing more to say? No curses? No victorious retorts? You got what you wanted, didn't you?
Lowe's inquired as his legs began to fade and turn to dust as well.
I understand. You're aware that you still won't receive them back. Your friends are still dead. Your native multiverse has fallen. I guess that warrants a moment of silence from you, V.
With his right arm and legs fading, Lowe's torso slumped backwards, turning him to face a shimmering golden light cracking upon him from the clouds above.
Even so, the truth you spoke still lands. You can never kill a shadow.
The Emperor reinstated as his chest and head began to gray out and fade away.
Even when I'm gone, wherever the darkness falls, I will always remain.
He whispered as his head was reduced to a withering skull.
For where there is light, there will always be the dark.
With the last words Lotus shared, before his entire body faded away into the wind, the Lord of Dark Matter was no more, leaving only a spire of hundreds of souls in his place to just fade away. Watching as these small strands of light arose to the sky, V's serious posture faded as his face winced with sorrow. Falling to his hands and knees, and let silent tears fall from his eyes to just hit the floor, whose dark matter had begun to fade. Before their very eyes, everyone watched as the throne dissolved away to reveal the withered remains of a tiny tree, one that had a dangling seed from one small branch. From all around, Void and the others watched as the matter within the maul turned to dust and dissolved away, restoring it back to its natural form. However, it was still damaged and colorless, unable to be restored. Shaking on the ground, V slowly sat up and looked down at his body. First, feeling the two scarves, the orange one belonging to Jida, the other belonging to his best friend, the trickster. Feeling the sweater around his waist that had once belonged to the cat, and then looking at the green crystal dangling from his wrist, the one that had once belonged to the emerald butterfly. Sighing, V gently flipped the small crystal up and around before catching it within his palm. Clutching it to his chest, he looked back up to the tiny tree with saddened eyes, before at last speaking aloud in his hoarse voice.
This should have never happened. If I hadn't been so hot-headed, if I had been smart about it, I could have... They all should have still been...
V expressed with a wave of sorrow. His Void then approached and rested a metal hand on his guarded shoulder plate. Turning his head, the Matter Bear looked to his reflection, who stared back with comforting eyes.
V, we can't blame ourselves for unintentionally causing a bad outcome. You did what you thought was right at that moment. None of this is your fault.
Void repeated the near same exact words his son had said to him when freeing his own soul from Lotus.
It's over now. He's gone. You're free.
T added as he approached as well and rested his hand atop V's shoulder sphere.
And you're not alone. Not anymore.
Vivian finished as the others approached and embraced V in a warm and well-needed group hug. All kneeling down, the entirety of Void's found team wrapped their arms around V, leaving the fallen Matter silent, but thankful. It was so quiet, he thought to himself. After years of war, battles, and constant ringing screams in his mind, V, for the first time in many years, felt at peace. Looking forwards, the green, glinting Matter Bear reached out a shaky hand and plucked the seed off the once multiversal tree. Looking down at it within his palm, he made out its spherical brown but blue spiral pattern form that glinted beautifully in a now clearing cloud. Opening his arm hatch, V placed the seed inside before slowly rising back to his feet, letting the warmth of his son gently caress his face once again.
Void Nova Son, I am forever in your debt.
V stated in his tired voice as he turned and looked upon everyone who had saved his life. It was then they all took notice of the glowing scars around V's face, sealing back over with a green shimmer, cutting his ties with the dark altogether.
All your debts,
he added as Void held on the Jida's hand.
As am I, for you saving my wife.
Nodding, the two reflections instantly gained a bonding respect before V continued on with his words.
Before I came back, a voice from the heavens told me that you were all together in order to save your Jay. Is this correct?
V asked with bold words, leaving Void to nod his head.
Yes, that is correct.
The spark replied, leaving V to nod his head.
If you would allow me, I would be more than willing to aid you in this mission. You saved me. May I help save your child in return?
V inquired, resulting in Void to nod with a stern and accepting stare.
Yes, of course.
brother. From behind, the mall, as well as the surrounding world, began to suddenly dissolve into the stardust, to some of the team's shock. What's happening? Chibi asked, as everyone took a slight step back. With both hearts now destroyed, my reality can no longer rest in a stable balance. Everything in this world's existence is now fading. V revealed as he looked to his now crumbling home in sorrow. Oh, man. V. We're so sorry. T apologized, while V just nodded his head. Don't be. This multiverse has been in hell for a long, long time. It's time for it and everything that had once been here to find its peace. V stated as he continued to watch his home and sky fade into a starry abyss. Nodding, Void turned and opened a newly shaded red star portal behind themselves before reaching his arm out and around and speaking. Alright, Nock, we're heading back home. I don't know if you can hear me, but we're heading back to the cabin. See you then. Void spoke before turning and beckoning his reflections to follow. Crossing through, both him and Jida, Pofnu and Joby, along with Vivian, Vode, and Chibi, crossed through, leaving Tiger to follow and for T to stop. Turning around, he set his sights upon V, who was just standing in the same spot as he was before, witnessing his world fade away. Hey, V, what are you waiting for? T asked before making his way back over to his taller green reflection. Sorry, I'm just taking it all in for one last time. V replied as the two reflections stood side by side. Tell me, is everyone in your world, my children, Shiro, Zelpi, Oliver, Psychus, everyone else, were they all okay in the end? V quietly inquired about the mall members, as both him and V witnessed the end of an era before their eyes. They're still as rambunctious and loving as I'm sure they were here. But yes, they're doing okay. T replied while extending his left arm up and wrapping it around V's shoulder. That makes me glad. V replied as he reached around and held his fellow Matterbird's shoulder as well, who just nodded with a newfound sense of brotherhood. Come on then. We still have a long journey ahead. The blue Matterbird reminded as he turned with V at his side. Looking over his shoulder for one last time, V took in the fading sight of his once lively home, picturing himself with the others in its main hub for one final time. Making his peace, he looked back forwards and followed T through the red star portal. Farewell, he whispered as it all faded to stardust. Stepping through to the other nighttime side, Void and Jida were instantly greeted to a shocking sight. As they emerged, they all found themselves within the 3 stone training grounds to be greeted by not just Nock, but Kot, Sarv, Tucker, as well as those left on the trash pack. Whoa! Hey guys! Void exclaimed as everyone ran up to meet them. Void, Nock gave us the word about what's going on. Is it true? Have you actually found a way to reach your boy? Sarv asked as she wore a laid-back red sweater and gray pants attire. Yeah, we came as soon as we could. Tucker added as he appeared to be wearing PJs, added with bunny slippers. Have you? Florence asked with wide eyes as her, Blippi, Sprinkles, ZB, and AJ ran up. However, still with no Quinn to be seen. Well, Void began to explain as Joby and Pofnu crossed through, being followed up by their reflections. Coming out emerged Vivian, Vode, Chibi, followed up by Tiger, then T, and V, who set their sights upon the residents of Aurora City. "Whoa! More sparks!" Sprinkles exclaimed with sparkling eyes as everyone else looked upon them with stunned eyes. "Oh my god. Nock wasn't joking. Are these?" Cod asked as everyone greeted the group with waving hands. "Versions of Void and one other Jida. Right on the money. Cod?" T exclaimed with wide and remembering eyes as Tiger swooped down and intertwined her arm around his. "Greetings," Vivian said with her arms crossed and head nodding down. "I take it that this is your homeworld, Novason. Very nice." Vogt added as he turned and looked at the city in the distance. "Whoa, you look awesome!" AJ exclaimed as he ran up the V's legs, leaving the Matterberth to look down in a curious gaze. "Wow, this is something else," Sarv stated as she glanced between her friends' reflections, who all looked so different yet similar. "As far as everyone is concerned, these guys, for lack of a better term, are my siblings," Void introduced while gesturing to all of them. "We have T, the Matterbirth, its wife Tiger, Vivian Celeste's daughter, Void Starwatcher, Chibi, and V, a survivor." Void said with a confident smile towards his green brother as he gave a little one back. "Interesting. But what the hell happened to you two? Why are you now colored like grape juice and fruit punch?" Nock asked while pointing at Void and Jida. "It's a long story," the musician replied as she made a stabbing motion, while the reflections began to fully approach the others. Walking up the Void with stern eyes, Florence looked at his red form before speaking in her more confident voice. "Do you actually have a way to reach him?" she asked with a tail tucked in between her legs. Quietly kneeling down, Void, looking to the side, bit the inside of his cheek and tapped a clenched hand to the side of his leg, feeling reminiscent upon the day of Maple's funeral. "Look, kid, we do have a chance, but a slim one. I'm not certain if this will work or not. I can't lie to you, kid. I don't know." Void spoke with honesty, leaving Florence to look down in worried thought. "Do you still feel him out there?" she asked while reaching into her coat pocket. "Yes, I do," Void replied as she suddenly pulled out a purple flower. "Then there's still hope," she stated while taking Void's hand and placing the plant within his palm. "When you find him, give this to him. Tell him that I'm waiting for him." Florence asked as Void eyed the lavender-shaded item in his palm. "He means a lot to you, doesn't he?" Void asked while carefully pocketing the item into his cloak. "More than you can imagine, sir. More than you can imagine," Florence retorted while holding both of her hands together in a saddened wince. "Void, are you ready?" Jada asked as she approached and held a hand to his shoulder. Looking up, Void eyed the young wolf's golden pleading eyes and nodded his head. "Yes. Let's do this," Void stated while standing back to his feet and turning to his reflections. "Orb Assault. It's time," Void commanded, getting them all to group up and then begin their first step of the process. Standing back, everyone who had come to greet the group watched as the reflections all stood in a circle and began to take hold of each other's hands, just as the book instructed. Reaching out to his left, Void took Jida by her right hand and took T's within his other. Jida, reaching out, held on to Joby's hand, who then took Pofnu's. Grasping as well, T took Tiger's hand, who then held on the Void's, who then took Vivian's, leaving only V to take her hand and his and Chibi's, who is now being hoisted up by him and Pofnu, creating the large circle. Alright, it's time for the moment of truth. Everyone, repeat after me. Void exclaimed before stating the following. Beyondor, Shostas. Hanging her head low with a stern look, Jida repeated after her husband, speaking with hope in her soul. Beyondor, Shostas. She called, leaving both Joby and Pofnu to speak up as well. Beyondor, Shostas. They both said, as T and Tiger began to follow suit. Beyondor, Shostas. After this, Vivian, Vode, and Chibi exclaimed as well, leaving V to close his eyes and repeat it too. Beyondor, Shostas. He called, causing a small spark to course across everyone's hands. Over and over they repeated, calling out to these supposed Beyonders, again and again, creating a slow but noticeable change. Wind's changing direction, Nox stated as he looked towards the nearby flowered trees that began to spin in a clockwise direction. Oh, it's something. They're doing something, Sarv said as the clouds above suddenly began to sparkle with lightning and static energy of mixed colors. Kids, stand back, Tucker boasted as the reflections all began to buzz and surge with their respective colors. Heart racing, Void opened his eyes along with a few of the others as they all continued to chant the two words over and over again. Tears might, he thought. Something was actually happening. With thunder rumbling above, the group of heroes began to glow brighter and brighter until the biggest shift took its form. Striking down from above, a multicolored bolt of lightning shattered through the sky, creating a similar white glowing force field around the reflections, one that looked almost identical to Jay's. As it emerged, it blew everyone outside of it back by a few feet, as the skies above opened once again to reveal the multicolored vortex, the one that took Jay and Lotus, along with Core and his reformatter. Odin hadn't juked them. This was the real deal. Rising up off their feet, Void, Jida, and the other reflections all suddenly began to levitate upwards and ascend towards the rift above. Void! Void, it's happening! Jida called with shock as everyone below watched on. This is the same as before, Kara called as the glowing rainbow colors glimmered brightly within his eyes. Hang on, everybody! Void exclaimed as he reached out and held Jida close amidst their now zero-gravity levitation. Keep your hands interlocked. We don't know what's on the other side, T called as he held on the Tiger with a stern look. I'm going weightless! Weightless! Chibi exclaimed while flailing his arms before V reached out and caught him. Gotcha, he said, looking up to the beautiful lights above, wondering as to where the child had gone. Fascinating, he softly exclaimed, while Chibi pulled out a bag from some kind of hammer space and puked into it. Holy shit, the old book was legit, Vivian said in disbelief as Vode reached out and took her by the arm. Hang on, sister. Things are probably going to get more legit from here on out, he stated as everyone neared ever closer to the rift above. Oh god, oh god, oh god, oh god, oh god, Joby worriedly called before Pofnu took her hand and held her close. Control your fear, sister. Listen to your heart. It's going to be alright, she assured as everyone huddled in close together and intertwined their arms. Where are they going? ZB asked with wide eyes as both her and AJ held each other close. They're going somewhere that defies logic, little one, Alk replied as he adjusted his glasses while nodding up to the group in a stern and confident stare. They're bringing Jay home, he concluded as all the kids continued to stare upwards from below with nervous stares. Bring him home. Bring Jay home, Florence whispered as the reflections neared the bridge point between their world and the unknown. Hang on, son. We're on our way, Void said with a stern stare as everyone gazed into the rainbow lights above, that at last took them in, taking them all into a new and uncharted world, a place that was described in myth and legend, the breach of the multiverse's veil, the home of the unpredictable, the great beyond.
When the light is running low and the shadows start to grow, and the places that you know seem like fantasy, there's a light inside your soul that's still shining in the cold, with the truth, the promise in our hearts. Don't forget, I'm with you in the